Welcome to the second episode of The Open Way. Matter, the feminine form of energy. When I was 16, I made a momentous discovery in a book on yogic philosophy. In ancient times, yogis probed the atom with their siddhi powers, and they discovered that the smallest particles of matter are vortices of energy. In the 19th century, the leading scientists in Britain, the leading physicists, believed this to be the case. They had this idea of the vortex atom. They were teaching at Cambridge that light was based upon wave motion and matter was based on vortex motion. But this idea was lost at the turn of the 20th century. And from then on, physicists endeavored to explain the universe entirely in terms of wave motion. Now, there's a very good reason for that. In the Talmud, it says, we see the world not the way it is, but the way we are. We tend to project ourselves on the universe. For example, God is believed to be a man. That's because most of the humans, of the individuals in religion, are men. Men dominate religions and push out women. And it's the same in science. Physics is dominated by men. Well, it was, not so much now, but it was. And they attempted to explain the whole of physics in terms of the masculine principle, which is light. Lucifer, the light bearer, was a man, a masculine form of spirit, if you like. Now, when I investigated this idea of the smallest particles of matter being vortices of energy from yogic philosophy, I realized it wasn't atoms, it was subatomic particles that must be whirlpools of light, whirlpools of energy. And I realized that if the energy is spinning, it will form a ball just like a ball of wool, because it's free to spin on infinite axes all the time. You try winding a line and see if you can end up with anything but a ball. Very difficult. This is the natural way a line that spins ends up as a sphere. So this explains why the smallest particles of matter, like electrons and protons and neutrons, are corpuscles. That's why they're spheres, little balls. They're balls of light. And this spherical form is the ovum. This is the feminine form of energy, the subatomic vortex. And this is why matter is named after mater in Latin, the mother. They knew, they weren't stupid. They knew that matter was more associated with the mother than the father. This is such an important move because this is the time of the return of the mother. This is the time of the grandmother. This is the time of women coming into their power. This is the time when women are rising up and saying, enough of putting us aside. We are as important and significant as men, and actually a lot more intelligent. Women are far more successful in business than men. We hate to admit it, us fellows do. But this is such an important step, because this represents the return of the feminine principle into physics. This is the physics for females, the physics for women. Women, grab this. You know, there are women in physics still believing that the waveform explains everything. Come on. Hello? Wake up, women. Seize your power. And this is powerful. The power of the hydrogen bombers in these little whirlpools. Unzip the whirlpool. This is a very compact form of wool. You undo this ball and you fill the whole room with wool. Unzip a whirlpool of light and you get a hell of a lot of light. This is E equals mc squared. The power is in the hands of the women. And what I discovered, ladies, it's very interesting, you know, I've been on lectures and always, almost invariably, there are more women in the audience than men. They seem to be more attracted to this vortex idea than men are. What I discovered is that all the properties of matter can be explained in terms of vortex motion, in terms of vortex spin. What the men are teaching, have been teaching for thousands of years, is the universe is formed of little balls, little material balls, moving in a void of space. This idea was put forward by Democritus 2,600 years ago. It's called the atomic hypothesis, and it's the bedrock of science. And it's wrong. Albert Einstein, in his equation E equals mc squared, showed that mass is a form of energy. Everything is energy. It's almost like matter is frozen light. But how do you explain the way that energy forms mass, that light forms matter? Spin. So the spin of energy sets up the spherical vortex, which explains why the smallest particles of matter are perfect little spheres. They don't have poles because the axis of spin is changing all the time. When a subatomic particle spins as a second motion on an axis to set up a magnetic field, then it has a magnetic poles. But the basic particle doesn't have any poles or axis of spin that are measurable. You can't measure them, you see, they're changing all the time. The vortex is a three-dimensional form of energy. That's why the world we live in is three-dimensional. The subatomic particle is just the dense center of the vortex. The extension of the particle into infinity is space. So matter and space are the same thing. They're connected. When you move a vortex, the extension of that vortex into infinity moves as well. This is the basis of Albert Einstein's relativity theory. When he was asked to put his theory of relativity in a nutshell, Einstein said if you move matter, and you also move space and time. They're connected. They're the same thing. And because these are whirlpools, they're dynamic, they're interacting. As they extend into infinity, they're overlapping, they interact. This explains force fields, the forces of electric charge, magnetism, and gravity that are associated with matter. Action at a distance, they called it. All explained by the vortex. I explain it all in my book, in the Quantum Vortex. The inertia of mass. Spin sets up inertia. You know when you spin a pebble and it skips across the surface of the pond, so it doesn't go this way or that way. Spin sets up inertia in the plane of the spin. And so when you've got spin on an infinite number of planes, as you have in this vortex, spherical vortex, you have resistance to movement in any direction. This is inertia. So look at what I've explained in less than 10 minutes. We're at 11 minutes and 20 seconds at the moment. I've explained in about 10 minutes three-dimensional extension, space, mass, electric charge, magnetism, gravity, inertia. When you unzip a vortex, you get an immense amount of energy. That's why converting mass into energy, you get vast amounts of energy release, the nuclear explosion. Richard Feynman said, of nuclear energy, we have the formulas for that, but we don't have the fundamental understanding. We don't know what it is. I've just explained to you what it is. Inertia. He said the laws of inertia have no known origin. I've just told you what the origin of inertia is, spin. What the origin of mass is, spin. It sets up the illusion of materiality. Materialism is spin. These PhDs, they're spin doctors. They're telling you the wrong thing. They're just teaching you spin. Next time you go to university and spend 9,000-10,000 a year on tuition fees, think, are they teaching you the right thing for your money? Mostly no. It's mostly no. I tell you, there's more reason to believe in angels and fairies than in quarks and the virtual particles of quantum mechanics. Modern physics is in a very sorry state. It's time for us to wake up. And realize we're being conned. So much of what we are taught to believe is fundamentally wrong in religion and science. So let's get to the bottom of this. What is spinning? Well, energy has no mass. It has no substance. It is no thing. It is nothing. It's just activity. Richard Feynman says we have no idea in physics today what energy is. Well, actually, energy is defined as the activity of systems. It's a measure of activity. But the problem we're faced with is there's nothing acting. And that's why more and more quantum physicists are believing that consciousness is the bedrock of reality. Sir James Jeans, in his book The Mysterious Universe, published in the 1930s, said that it's becoming more and more apparent to physicists that the universe is more a great thought than a great thing. More and more in quantum theory, the universe appears to be a mind, and bedrock of reality is consciousness. Quantum theory basically teaches us that energy is particulate, that the universe is formed of particles of energy. They're little lines that are either undulating or spinning, forming particles of light or particles of matter. But the thing about these particles, if you take a particle of matter like the proton, all protons are identical. They have exactly the same mass. They have the same value of charge. All their properties are the same, which suggests they come from the same consciousness. If you had lots of consciousnesses making protons, they'd all be a bit different, but they're not, they're all the same. So just as we get the particulate nature of thought, there are many thoughts, but there's one mind behind them all. You experience it yourself. Your head's full of thoughts, but just you, isn't it? No, they're not lots of yous thinking. It's just one you thinking lots of thoughts. And that's the nature of the universe. One mind with lots of thoughts. And the particles are more like thoughts than things. So the unity of consciousness is really important to understand. And this, again, is what we need to understand. You see, in my introduction, I said there's only one way, and the way is within. You see, if we look out there, which is what religions do, they're all looking out there. Hello, God, the external God who comes to Abraham, comes to Moses and gives him lots of commandments. Works black magic to harden the heart of the Pharaoh for his own vain glory. What sort of God is that? You can't trust the gods out there. Who appeared to Abraham? Who appeared to Moses? We don't know. And his behavior is shocking, appalling. Right from the beginning, he was cursing. He was cursing Eve. He cursed everybody. He was cursing the whole way through. Cursing God who performs black magic. We've got to be careful out there following these religions based upon external features. Follow quantum theory, that's what I say. Much safer. Leave the religions behind. Quantum theory teaches us that there's one indivisible consciousness underlying everything. And that is what Plato was teaching. You are me and I am thee. We're one conscious. We're conscious. I can see. I'm seeing me at the moment on this filming, but I know you're out there looking at me. But you are the same being, essential being, looking at me as I am looking at you. We're the one being in the many bodies, because what is it that looks out of my eyes and sees you? What is it that's aware in me through my ears, through the taste in my tongue? That's called consciousness. I have conscious awareness. But who am I? That's the big mystery. I'm just consciousness. I'm just conscious and aware. The thing is, you cannot divide consciousness. It's one. So there can only be one consciousness in everything, in everyone, giving everything existence. The one being in everything, not just in you and me, it's in the cat. We've got a cat called Archie. I mean, he is so intelligent, he's so smart. I really love that creature. I recognize there's no difference in essential. He sees me and I see his. We're the same being. He's in a cat body and I'm in a human body. Same with the gnat. The same with the slugs that get in there and eat his food. They're the slug me, you know. We are all God in human bodies, having a human experience. There's this wonderful chant called Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. When my daughter Rebecca first introduced me to it, from then on, it's been chasing me around the planet. I was living in Maidenhead for a period, and that's the UK centre of the Nam-myoho Renge Kyo chant. Then I had to spend some time in Japan, in Shinjuku, and I found just round the corner from the hotel where my then wife Lisbeth and I were staying, was the world centre of Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. I used to go in there and they have floors of people chanting. So what does Nam-myoho Renge Kyo mean? It means remember the essential law of life in the Lotus Sutra of Buddha. What was Buddha teaching? He was teaching that whilst we're in the universe is in us. So if you want to understand the universe, go inside. You find the universe is within you. You don't need to look for a God outside. You go inside because there's no separation between God and the universe. The universe is God. The universe is a collective of energy. It's a collective of thoughts. It's just a universal mind. We don't need to imagine a God existing out of the universe, creating the universe. The universe is self-creating, self-sustaining. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's eternal. And the source of energy must be even more eternal. Universal consciousness. Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. No, I am, therefore I think. So you see, it's very interesting. Women, on the whole, are more intuitive, are more in tune. They have to be to survive. You know, make sure there's not a lion in the bushes about to leap out and eat their baby. They've got to be really in tune with nature, really in touch. But it's interesting, there are more women in the spiritual movement than men. So this is such a powerful and potent time for women. And it means a lot to me. I was told by Norma Milanovic in a channeling she did for me at Plymouth many years ago. She said, you are the brother who stood firm in Atlantis until the end and held the light so that the mother could return to the earth. So I've got a big interest in the women's movement. I've got a big interest in the vortex, Mater, the mother, empowering women with their own physics, the physics of the quantum vortex. So that's how we conclude this episode. And once again, I remind you of the way I'm suggesting you find your inner core and build your inner castle. You go inside on the breath. You feel into the core presence of your being in your breathing. And that if you just hold your tongue up, just point it up toward the palate. You don't have to lift it a lot. You don't have to put it right back. You don't have to touch your palate. Just curl it up a little bit. And that aligns the chi, aligns the life force. It makes it easier for you to go into the breath. You find if you do that, it reminds you to go into the breath. If you put your tongue up, you just naturally go into the breath. Let go of thought. Because thought confuses us. Thought distracts us. Thought, more often than not, says the wrong things, not the right things. But if you're connected and you go into your silence, then thoughts will arise from your core being and fill you with inspiration. And I've launched an album of prayer songs called Balm for the Soul, which you can get on Spotify and Bandcamp. Best to download it from Bandcamp onto your device, because your notifications will distract you. But if you put on your headphones, relax back and just listen to Balm for the Soul as a meditation, and let the songs wash your thoughts away. Just let the songs carry you as you go into your meditation and connect with the I am presence of the divine, real you, source of the universe within. Namaste.